Police arrest an education university student in connection with orientation camp-related sex crimes. And the U.S. warns North Korea that it will pay a price if it arms Russia in Ukraine. Hello and welcome to TVB News. A man was arrested on suspicion of sexual assault and voyeurism on Tuesday evening after reports were filed to the police relating to two Education University of Hong Kong orientation camps. Mimo Singai has details.
A string of sex crime allegations relating to orientation camps at universities in the city have recently emerged. The latest suspected case reportedly took place during orientation camps at the Education University of Hong Kong. The police said 4 women filed complaints between July and August, claiming they had been sexually assaulted during their orientation camps. After looking into the reports, the police arrested a 28-year-old man in North Lantau on Tuesday on suspicion of sexual assault and voyeurism. The police said the suspect had participated in 6 orientation camps held in different locations, including Yuen Long and Tai Po. The man is a part-time lifeguard at the Leisure and Cultural Services Department and also a student at EDU. Sources say he allegedly raped an 18-year-old first-year student at a joint university camp held by the Hong Kong Red Cross in late July. He is also suspected of having watched a 22-year-old third-year student showering in a camp organized by the university's photography and engineering societies. At that same camp, the man is alleged to have touched another woman's lap. Moreover, another complaint alleged he had sexually assaulted a woman in a car after leaving a different orientation camp. Speaking to the press today, the police said students should contact the disciplinary force if they believe they have been sexually assaulted when attending the camps in Yuen Long, Tai Po and South Lantau. Meanwhile, EDU said the institution is cooperating with the police investigation, adding a task force will be formed to review orientation camp arrangements. Mimo Singai, TVB News.
Sources say a 60-year-old man lost some $15 million after falling prey to an investment scam. The victim is said to be a senior financier. The man left his contact information on a social media post about mainland stocks in May. The fraudster who published the post, a self-claimed investment manager from the Union Bank of Switzerland, then got in touch with a man. In July, the man was tipped off with exclusive news of the market from the suspected fraudster, who was lured into downloading a mobile app. Between July and August, he transferred, on separate occasions, more than $15 million to 23 local banks. In July, he was told he had gained $16 million. However, when he wanted to withdraw the money, the portal demanded he pay $2 million in administrative fees. The fraudster was unable to be contacted. The Court of Final Appeal has ruled that the SAR government has the duty to provide an alternative framework for legal recognition of same-sex relationships. While experts called on authorities to be more comprehensive in handling the issue, some lawmakers worry about undermining traditional family values. Sharon Tang reports.
Activist Jimmy Shan married his same-sex partner in New York in 2013. He sought recognition of same-sex marriages overseas in a judicial review case before the city's top court. On Tuesday, the Court of Final Appeal ruled that the SAR authorities have not infringed the Hong Kong Bill of Rights Ordinance or the Basic Law by not recognizing same-sex marriages or not recognizing such marriages overseas. But 3 of the 5 judges agreed that Hong Kong should offer an alternative framework for legal recognition of same-sex relationship in order to meet basic social requirements. The government has 2 years to fulfill the order. Executive Council convener Regina Ip says when the Basic Law was promulgated back in the 1980s, same-sex marriages were not inscribed into the law, but agrees it's reasonable for the city to provide an alternative. It's not a first for the court to rule in favor of same-sex couples' rights. There have previously been 3 successful legal challenges involving one's right to apply for public housing, to live in a subsidized housing unit, and to inherit a fortune. The government is still seeking to overturn the rulings. A gender studies specialist says, according to an Equal Opportunities Commission report, there are at least 100 areas in Hong Kong where same-sex couples are unfairly treated. Sun Yutong from the Chinese University says authorities need to think further when they set up an alternative legal framework. That includes whether one can make an important medical decision for the other half. Still, a lawmaker has cautioned against undermining traditional family values.
The right of adopting children should not be included or should not be granted for these same-sex couple under maybe civil union or civil partnership. Because if you do that, that would actually seriously affect the traditional family values in Hong Kong. That actually sparked off a lot of concerns within the community.
Chow hopes the authorities will conduct thorough consultation on the issue. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
A male body has been found inside an industrial building in Kwai Chung. Authorities suspect foul play. The police received reports at around 1:40 this afternoon of a body found inside a building on King Hong Street. Sources say the body was stuffed inside a bag. Police have classified the incident as a murder case. No arrests have been made so far. A man and woman died at a public housing unit in Tai Po. Sources say the two were relatives who were fighting over inheritance. Officers carried out an investigation in Hang Wo House at Tai Po Estate after the police received a report that a man fell from a height this morning. A woman who suffered head and neck injuries was later found dead in her home. The 50-year-old is believed to have had both her hands tied at the time. A pair of scissors and burnt charcoal was found in the unit. Initial investigations show the 60-year-old man is the woman's uncle. The two were reportedly fighting over the ownership of the housing unit in Hang Wo House. Neighbors claim they heard screaming the night before. The United States has warned North Korea it will pay a price if it arms Russia in Ukraine. There are reports Kim Jong-un plans to travel to Russia this month to discuss supplying weapons. Kim will probably travel by armored train to Vladivostok, where he would meet Putin, the New York Times reported. A source told the Times the two leaders will discuss the North providing artillery shells and anti-tank missiles in exchange for satellite expertise. Experts estimate Russia has lost 2/3 of its tanks during the conflict in Ukraine. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu went to Pyongyang in July, where the U.S. claims he asked for military assistance.
To try to conquer territory that belongs to another sovereign nation, this is not going to reflect well on North Korea, and they will pay a price for this in the international community. We have also imposed sanctions, specific targeted sanctions, to try to disrupt any effort to use North Korea as a conduit or as a source for weapons going to Russia. We did so as recently as mid-August. And we have continued to convey privately as well as publicly to the North Koreans and asked allies and partners to do the same.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Kyiv for an unannounced visit. America's diplomat traveled into Ukraine on a train and was seen working on documents ahead of meetings. Blinken's trip aims to assess Ukraine's 3-month-old counteroffensive and show continuing U.S. support for Kyiv. The Secretary of State was greeted by Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba as he arrived in the capital. As the first Africa Climate Summit got underway in Kenya on Monday, African leaders called for changes to what they say is an unfair international climate finance system. This as the president of the upcoming COP28 conference in Dubai said at the conference on Tuesday that the world is losing the race to meet its climate change goals. Tracy Furness has more.
African leaders arrived on Tuesday at the inaugural Africa Climate Summit being held in Nairobi. The summit, which opened Monday, is focused on mobilizing financing for Africa's response to climate change. While Africa is suffering from some of the most severe impacts of climate change, the continent only receives about 12% of the financing it needs to cope. Kenyan President William Ruto suggested that special drawing rights at the International Monetary Fund should be made available to the countries that need them most.
We want a fair financial system that treats everybody equally. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not too much to ask. A fair international financial architecture is not a fair proposition or an unfair proposition to make.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in sustainable development projects were announced as COP28 President Sultan Al-Jaber said on Tuesday the world was losing the race in meeting climate change goals set in the Paris Agreement.
And the world is struggling to keep 1.5 within reach. Collectively, we must admit that we are not delivering the results we need in the time we need them.
US government climate envoy John Kerry, who was also attending the summit, said transitioning to greener energy will need the private sector to be involved.
No government can produce enough money to make sure this transition happens. No government, anywhere in the world. This transition is going to happen, in my judgment, because the private sector gets involved much greater degree than today, and the trillions of dollars that is looking for deals, for opportunity, is going to suddenly start to deploy.
Sultan Al-Jaber announced his country, alongside the private sector, will deploy $4.5 billion towards clean power on the African continent. Missing from the summit were leaders of a number of Africa's largest economies, including South Africa, Nigeria and Egypt, as well as Congo. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Still ahead, the city of Birmingham effectively declares itself bankrupt. Moderna's bivalent Omicron targeting booster vaccine will be available in Hong Kong later this month. And a 3-day fruit expo opens in the city. Welcome back to TVB News. The council of the second largest city in the UK has effectively declared itself bankrupt. Birmingham City Council, which provides services for over 1 million people, has halted expenditure on all but essential services. The council says equal pay claims have put its budget at breaking point. David Garrett reports.
Birmingham City Council admits it has a hole in its budget of around £87 million. By filing a Section 114 notice, it's effectively declared bankruptcy. The council cannot meet its debts. The second largest municipal authority in Europe blamed a legal obligation to settle equal pay claims, cases mostly brought by female employees in 2014 who say they did not get the same bonuses as male colleagues. The back payments will cost the council around £760 million. They don't have it. Campaigners say if they paid women properly, they wouldn't be in this mess. The deputy leader of the Labour-led authority apologised to around 1 million residents.
For anybody who's suffering across the city, you know, anything that impacts and that the council has done wrong, we'll hold up our hands and we will say sorry for.
The opposition say council leaders lied and the apology is too little, too late.
They've been telling the public there was going to be a golden decade to get re-elected, while in fact we now know they built it on fool's gold, where the accounts haven't been signed off and there's no actual allowance made for the debt that they owe.
The Conservative Mayor of Birmingham says the current Labour Council never came up with a plan to deal with the costs. Andy Street thinks Brummies have been let down. The council's coffers took a further hit when costs for an IT project soared from £20 million to around £100 million. They've had to sell off the National Exhibition Centre to raise cash. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says it's for regional councils to look after their own budgets. Local authorities across the UK are struggling. 3 on the outskirts of London have announced similar measures to Birmingham after badly designed fiscal plans. Support groups say neither national nor local governments are doing enough to help those in need.
We speak to families all the time who have really bad problems with mould or mice infestations. Our concern is what little maintenance and support there is available for these families will slowly eke away until there's precious little left.
A year ago, Birmingham hosted an impressive but expensive Commonwealth Games with the aim of showing off the city to the world. Now, Birmingham and its famous Bullring shopping complex are in the news for the wrong reasons, and people are angry. David Garrett, TVB News.
Bivalent Omicron targeting booster vaccines produced by American pharmaceutical company Moderna will be available in Hong Kong in mid-September. The company said people can receive the bivalent vaccines in clinics and private hospitals. However, the cost and price of the booster shots were not mentioned. In Hong Kong, the number of confirmed positive COVID cases has remained steady over the past 2 months, fewer than 1,000 cases a week. Joseph Chang, a specialist in infectious disease, says the desire of residents to receive COVID-19 boosters is low, as they think it is not that serious after catching the coronavirus. However, he says the city will likely see another surge in COVID infections between October and November. He says those who are vulnerable should keep an eye on their vaccination records. Showcasing fruit from around the world, the 3-day Asia Fruit Logistica opened at the Asia World Expo today. With over 40 countries participating in the event, some exhibitors said they are optimistic about their business this year, adding that their situation actually improved over the course of the pandemic. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Pink pineapples from Costa Rica, figs from Turkey. The Asia Fruit Logistica made its long-awaited comeback to Hong Kong this year. Having been held abroad since 2020, this year's show at the Asia World Expo involved more than 700 exhibitors from more than 40 countries, including Brazil, Germany, and Vietnam. Event organizers said the return has much to do with the importance of the SAR's proximity to the mainland.
Ever since we moved here in 2008, its location close to the mainland of China has been a crucial aspect of us holding the show here, because the Chinese market is very important for us, and it makes out roughly 1/3 of the attendance at Asia Fruit Logistica.
Many participants this year noted the number of attendees was higher than expected, and they were keen to expand into the Greater China region.
Hong Kong is Australia's #1 export market for avocados. We hold about 35% of the Hong Kong market in terms of avocados. So the Hong Kong consumer and the Hong Kong retailers love Australia's large avocados.
Some event participants from Japan said they were not concerned about the recent release of the Fukushima nuclear wastewater and its effect on their fresh produce.
Japan's been the kind of a lot of problem like a nuclear fog and kind of thing and earthquake, but it's, you know, that's let's say again, we've been kind of doing the vegetable business more than longer years for compared to the old Asian, when we have a lot of tests, a lot of residue tests. Residue tests, very delicate, no fake. Everybody's very straight. Very safe products. We have confidence.
Meanwhile, a number of exhibitors noted the fruit business actually improved over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Actually strengthened the demand. So people have always recognized that kiwi fruit is great for vitamin C, but particularly during the pandemic, there was a greater recognition that vitamin C to boost people's health is really an important thing during that period.
Visitors at the Asia Fruit Logistica could try a variety of fruits, including these kiwi fruits from New Zealand.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.